لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ما بعد. Today we'll continue with Tajdeed al-Iman, rebuilding our faith, a small book by Shaykh Abdul Razak al-Badr Hafidhahullah. And last week we stopped on the things that will decrease our Iman. The things that will decrease our Iman and make us weaker. And quickly he mentioned the first one was al-jahl, ignorance. And the type of ignorance, an ignorance not knowing how to increase Iman. If a person doesn't know how to increase their faith, then that's a reason in itself for a person's faith to be weaker, as they don't know how to strengthen their own faith. Hit the drum. If a person doesn't know how to increase their faith, then that's a reason for their faith to weaken in itself. Then the second one, al-ghafla, negligence, being negligent and heedless of the things around them and the things that could affect their faith and make it stronger, or the things that could make it weaker. The third one, al-i'rad, turning away from the ayat in the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, turning away from the truth and turning away from the guidance once a person hears the guidance. The fourth one, an-nisyan, forgetfulness or forgetting. The person, and there are two types, as he said, there are two types. A person, and this nisyan here that a person is held accountable for, is that a person intentionally doesn't want to remember. They know something, they intentionally don't want to do it. They don't want to recall. Not the person that, we all forget. We all forget. As the ayah says, وَرَبَّنَا لَا تُؤَخِذْنَا إِن نَسِينَا أَوْ أَخْطَأْنَا. In Surah Al-Baqarah, the dua, our Lord, don't hold us accountable for our mistakes and for that which we forget. But that's not the one, not that type of forgetting. The forgetting where aslan, the person doesn't want to be reminded in the first place. So they intentionally leave something off, intentionally not trying to reach the truth. The fifth one was fi'l al-ma'asi wa irtikab al-dhunub. Sinning, falling to sin in disobeying Allah, following a path of disobedience to Allah Jalla wa'ala. All of these are things that make us weaker and decrease our Iman. But they're also, in the beginning of this portion, he put them into two categories, right? The things that decrease a person's faith fall into two categories. You with me? Two categories. The first category were those things that we just mentioned. All of these, even the last one that we're talking about today. This first category are all things, as he describes them, as الأسباب الداخلية أو العوامل الذاتية. These are things that are from within us. They're from our own doing. They're in our control. Meaning, if we're ignorant, we don't know something, that's based on us not learning. If we're heedless, al-ghafla, that's based on us not being attentive to our surroundings, our conversations, and the people who we're around. Al-i'rad, turning away after hearing the truth, based on a person following their hawa, their desires. They hear the truth, they hear the ayat, they hear the ha, and then they choose to turn away after knowing the truth. All of these things are asbab al-dakhiliyah, nisyan. A person intentionally, they don't want to know. They know that's the truth, but as Allah said in the Quran, لا تكونوا كالذين نسوا الله فأنساهم أنفسهم. In Surah Al-Hashr, don't be like those who forgot themselves. That intentional forgetting, all of these things are from or under our, capability to, better ourselves in these areas. Fi'l al-ma'asi, disobeying Allah. That's from us. Disobedience, dhunub. This last one, and this is the first category. This is the first category. An-nafsu al-amaratu bis-su. the soul that constantly commands us with evil. As Allah said, قال تعالى إن النفس لأمارة بالسوء إلا ما رحم ربي. In Surah Yusuf, ayah 53, where Allah said, indeed that the soul is always commanding you with evil, except for the one who Allah has mercy on. So the fact that the soul commands us with evil, it doesn't mean that we don't have any shield against it, that we have something to protect ourselves. And this is why he said, حفظه الله وكان صلى الله عليه وسلم يستعيذ في خطبه من شر النفس. That's the point of the Messenger عليه الصلاة والسلام, constantly making or seeking refuge in Allah, seeking Allah's protection from the evil of the nafs, of the soul. As he would say, قال صلى الله عليه وسلم, that we always hear in the khutbah, Jum'ah, or the opening in some of the du'as for durus, classes and stuff like that. Alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina. We all praises for Allah, we praise Him. We seek His aid, we seek His forgiveness. Wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina. And we seek Allah's protection from the evil of our own selves. Min shururi anfusina. And the Prophet ﷺ would always open up with that in the khutbah to hajjah. A lot of times we hear it in the Jum'ah, the khutbah to Jum'ah, or the beginning of a dars, a class or something like that. And then he would say, وَمِن سَيِّئَاتِ أَعْمَالِنَا. And we seek Allah's refuge from our evil deeds, our evil actions. So we have a force field to say, or something to fight against the evil soul, but we have to use it. Al-isti'adah, seeking Allah's protection. Seeking Allah's protection. So we have something to fight against the soul. If we don't use it, then that's our problem. That's our problem, right? If we're not using the things that the Prophet ﷺ left behind for us, then that is our problem and our mistake. As he says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, taraktu fikum shay'an. He said, I left two things behind you. If you grab onto them, you will never go astray. Lan tudhillu. Lan tudhillu. Taraktu fikum. Or kama qala alayhi salatu wasalam. He said, Lan tudhillu. You will never go astray. Al-kitab wa sunnati. So if we're not using them, then that's our problem. Just like if we're not learning, then that's our problem. If we're heedless, then that falls on us, right? If we turn away after hearing the truth, then this is our mistake. And all of these things are in the category of al-asbab al-dakhiliyah, right? The reasons that we are basically, let's say more or less in control of, or we have the ability to gain control over them and to protect ourselves in some type of way. And not that we don't with the other ones, but let's say that they come from us. That ignorance stems from us. And he mentions another hadith, ثبت عنه صلى الله عليه وسلم في الدعاء الذي علمه أبا بكر الصديق رضي الله عنه ليقوله في الصباح والمساء وعند النوم. And in this part of the hadith, a hadith that the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he taught Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Taught Abu Bakr as-Siddiq this hadith to say in the morning and in the night before bedtime. In the morning and in the evening and even before bedtime. He taught Abu Bakr this hadith. And in the hadith it says, وَأَعُوذُ بِكْ مِنْ شَرِّ نَفْسِي. And I seek your protection, O Allah, from the evil of my own soul. And this is what he taught Abu Bakr. And if he taught Abu Bakr that, then of course, then we are in need of the same dua. And this is from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, this dua. And then he said, وَمِنْ شَرِّ الشَّيْطَانِ وَشِرْكِي. And I seek refuge and protection with Allah from the evil of the shaitan. That we have to use the things that the Prophet ﷺ left behind for us as a source of guidance. Not that we just know them, we know the narrations or we know that they're there, but we have to use them in their appropriate times. Right? We have to use them in their appropriate times, seeking Allah's protection from our own evil. Right? And from the shaitan. The shaitan is real. It's not something that's imaginary. This is a real part of the creation. So Shaykh Abdul Razak says, فَإِنَّ النَّفْسَ تَأْمُرُ الْإِنسَانِ بِالسُّوءِ وَالْفَسَادِ وَفِعْلِ الْمَعَاصِي. So the soul in itself is something that calls a person to evil and disobedience. So in order to curb that evil, and this is from the nature of, or the soul is like this, as Allah created it. In order to combat this evil, we have to use what our Prophet ﷺ left behind for us, seeking Allah's protection. Al-isti'adah, seeking Allah's protection from our own souls and from our own evil actions, and seeking Allah's forgiveness and these things. And this is the sixth thing that he mentioned as the decrease that will decrease a person's faith, as far as the asbab ad-dakhiliyah, those things that come from within our own self. Clear? Clear? Is the next part, or the next category, are the asbab al-kharijiyah. Al-asbab al-kharijiyah. طيب. And these are things that we can say, al-kharij, they're not something that we basically have control over. It's out of our hands. Okay? And he mentioned three things. The first one, shaitan. The first one is shaitan. That the shaitan, فَالشَّيْطَانُ هُوَ أَلَدُّ عَبْدَ الْإِنسَانِ, and he's the greatest enemy to mankind. أَخْطَرُهَا وَأَشَدُّهَا ضَرَرًا. And out of the things that will cause a person's faith to decrease, cause a person to be weaker, that the shaitan, he says, akhtar, is the most dangerous one. It's the most dangerous and the most, right? The shaitan, the devil. Allah said in Surah Fatir, قال تعالى, إن الشيطان لكم عدو فاتخذوه عدوا. That indeed the shaitan is an enemy. He's an enemy, so take him and treat him like he's an enemy. And I think we mentioned this ayah before. If a person is an enemy, then it's a certain way that you move when you're around them. Certain places you don't go. If you got enemies, right? If you know that somebody's your enemy, y'all got problems, right? Beef, drama, whatever you want to call it. Certain places you don't go, right? Certain people you don't even stand next to, right? You might not drive a certain car. You might not wear a certain type of clothing, right? If you got an enemy, if you really have enemies that are looking to hurt you, then you really, really strategically plan out your day. Everywhere you go, every person you talk to, right? Allah told us in the Quran that the shaitan is an enemy, so treat him like an enemy. Which means we have to be conscious of what's going on. Where are we going? Who are we dealing with? Right? All of those things that could affect us, then we have to take them into consideration. إِنَّمَا يَدْعُو حِزْبَهُ لِيَكُونُوا مِنْ أَصْحَابِ السَّعِيرِ. That he calls his people to be people of the hellfire. He calls to the hellfire. Therefore, وَقَدْ حَذَّرَنَا رَبُّنَا مِنْهُ أَشَدُّ التَّحْذِيرِ. So Allah warned us in the Quran, a severe warning, a serious warning against the shaitan. If we take regular people as enemies, what about the one who's calling us to the hellfire? That we don't consider this person or enemy, or take it serious enough to adjust and pay attention throughout our day to make sure that we're protecting ourselves from falling into the many traps that the shaitan set for us. Because he said Allah said in Surah Ibrahim, on Yom Al-Qiyamah, he's going to come, shaitan is going to come and say, I only called you. I only called you and you answered. I had no power over you to make you do anything. The person blames the shaitan and says, you can't blame the shaitan for your disobedience. None of us. We can't blame the shaitan for our disobedience. We could blame ourselves for not seeking Allah's protection from the shaitan. I didn't use the dua that the Prophet ﷺ taught Abu Bakr. Right? I didn't do that. The shaitan is going to do what he was created. He's going to do what, as Allah said he's going to do. He's going to sit on the path, try to distract people. In the front, in the back, right, left. Just as Allah said in the Quran, that's what he's going to do. What are we supposed to do? We have to use the guidance in the Quran and the Sunnah to protect ourselves from the shaitan. So Allah told us in the Quran that he is the shaitan, inna shaitana lakum aduun, fattakhiduhu aduwan. He's an enemy, so take him and treat him like an enemy. Take him and treat him like an enemy. Allah said in another ayat, in Surah An-Nur, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, la tattabi'u khutawat al-shaytan. ومن يتبع خطوات الشيطان فإنه يأمر بالفحشاء والمنكر. In Surah An-Nur, ayat 21. That Allah said, oh, you who believe, don't follow the footsteps of the shaitan. Clear. Don't follow the footsteps of the shaitan. And whoever follows the footsteps of the shaitan, then know that the shaitan commands you with evil and al-fahsha, immorality, indecency, disobedience, all types of disobedience, from zina, fornication on down. All types of evil is what the shaitan will command a person with. And that's in Surah An-Nur, ayat 21. And the ayat, another ayat in Surah 2, I don't know if Khalas. He says, to show how serious and how dangerous the shaitan is. من مظاهر خطره أنه يجلس الإنسان في كل طريق. That he's going to come from every angle, not just from one angle. That he's going to come, and he comes at us from every angle possible that we can think of. سواء كان هذا طريق طاعة لله وقربة أو كان طريق في معصية. No matter if that angle is from a person obeying Allah, being upright and obedient, then the shaitan may come to him. Or if the person is being disobedient, then the shaitan may come to him. And there's an ayat discussing that. There's an ayat in the Quran, and really we just mentioned it, but we leave you to find that one. To find the ayat where Allah tells us in the Quran that the shaitan is going to be coming from us from all angles. لأقعدن لهم صراطك المستقيم. Alright, طيب. That's what the shaitan said. كما أخبرنا الله. Allah said that the shaitan said, I will sit on your straight path waiting for him. And then he described how it's going to, exactly where. You can find that in the Quran. That's something to find. طيب. So Shaykh al-Razak says he could come to a person from the way of obedience. Right? How would the shaitan come to a person? An tariqat al-ta'a. As far as obedience. How would shaitan come to a person? He's being obedient, so how's the shaitan going to throw him off?
We're trying to get him to do less.
Gee, by trying to get him to do less. The shaitan may trick a person and think, you've been doing enough. You've been praying your sunnahs like for the past week. Khalas. Or you prayed all Ramadan, you prayed all Tarawih, now you can fall back a little bit. Right? The encouragement to do less. Encouragement to do less. Or for the sister, you've been praying Jumu'ah, or you've been praying in the house, you've been praying, you've been doing this, you can lay back a little bit. Take a break. Take a break from obeying Allah Jalla wa Ala. It's from the shaitan. Right? The Prophet ﷺ told us those sunnah rawatib, and even though it's maybe after Ramadan, Tarawih, Qiyamul Layl, right? To leave that off, you're leaving off a lot of ajr. Even though it might not be something obligatory you're leaving off. It may not be obligatory, right? But if the shaitan can weaken us piece by piece, right? Then this is part of his game. Piece by piece. So he says, one way is, as he says, that to get him to do less, to leave off that, put something in between and try to make him to stop obeying Allah Jalla wa Ala. طيب, how does the shaitan come to a person by way of disobedience? Person's already disobeying Allah. So how does the shaitan make him do more? That's exactly what he said. When it comes to disobedience, the shaitan comes and he encourages him to do more, or encourages her to do more disobedience. فَهُوَ مِنْ أَخْطَرْ مَا يَكُونَ عَلَى الْإِيمَانِ. So this is one of the most dangerous things that affects a person's faith. And therefore, we have to use that hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, seeking Allah's protection from the shaitan. أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ, as we say before we recite the Quran. Right? And those dua that the Prophet ﷺ taught Abu Bakr, the Khalifa, radiallahu anhu, took over after the death of the Prophet ﷺ. Right? Abu Bakr, Siddiq, radiallahu anhu, second in charge after the Prophet ﷺ, or first in charge after the Prophet ﷺ. They said he was crying. Have somebody else lead the salat, because when he leads the salat, he cries too much. We can't hear the salat. Right? Abu Bakr, radiallahu anhu, said, la, Abu Bakr is going to lead the salat. Abu Bakr leads the salat. He taught Abu Bakr that hadith, that dua to say in the morning, in the evening, and before you go to bed. And that dua contained the statement, A'udhu bik min sharri nafsi. Oh Allah, I seek refuge and protection from you, from the evil of myself. And if Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was in need of course we're in need of it. وَمِن شَرِّ الشَّيْطَانِ, and from the evil of the shaitan, or shirki. طيب. So he says the shaitan comes from a person, from every way, including ways of obedience and ways of disobedience. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he has a book called Talbis Iblis, the deceptions of the shaitan, the deceptions of the devil. And he talks about how the shaitan comes to just about every group of people. The worshippers, the people of worship, the ulama, scholars of hadith. He comes to the scholars of hadith, comes to the scholars of fiqh, comes to the Qur'an, the readers of the Quran. Every person he can get an edge on in some type of way, maybe cause him to go overboard. In some type of way, any way that he can get to a person that he goes and he tries to distract the person from the straight path. طيب. The second sabab from the asbab al-kharijiyya, as the first one was the shaitan, which we don't have any control over the shaitan, right? Not like we have control over ourselves being ignorant. If we're ignorant, we don't know something, we have the ability to go and learn it, right? Those things, that first, but we don't have any control over what the shaitan does and what the shaitan doesn't do. Everybody see the difference? Right? The second thing from the asbab al-kharijiyya, ad-dunya wa fitniha, the dunya. That we have no control over things that happen like worldwide, or what we do have is dua, and we have to be upright within our own selves first. And here it says, La siyama idha asbahat ad-dunya adbaru hamil insan, especially if the most important thing to a person is the dunya, this world. If a person loses focus of the hereafter, and their biggest focus is on dunya, then this is a serious reason for a person's decrease in iman. Wallahu jalla wa ala qad hadarna min al-iftitan biha ashaddu tahdhir. And Allah warned us from being fascinated or infatuated and totally in love with this life. Allah said in Surah Al-Hadid, Surah Al-Hadid, اعلموا أنما الحياة الدنيا لعب ولهو وزينة وتفاخر بينكم وتكاثر في الأموال والأولاد. He said, know that this life is play, amusement, zina, adornments, right? Boasting between each other, and competition in money and children. Competition in money and children. Play and amusement. That this dunya is play and amusement. Wazina, beautification and adornments. Watafakhur, boasting and going into competition with each other. Over what? Fil amwali wal awlad, in money and children. who can have the most kids, and this is a form, everybody might not do it, but it's a form of competition and bragging. How many kids do you have? Right? I got more, I got this. Oh, you got to catch up. You still got a couple more to go. Right? At the dunya, if we lose focus, it becomes a reason for us to be distracted from the ultimate goal, which is the hereafter, al-Jannah. He said, and Allah warned us in the Quran about being fascinated with the dunya. Know that it's only play and amusement. And there's a bigger goal. And he says, from the things that'll help a person understand, مما يعين العبد على إدراك حقيقة الدنيا والزهد فيها والطلب ما عند الله ودار الآخرة. Two things he says here that'll help a person focus more on the akhirah and knowing the reality of this life. He said, if a person looks at these two things, it'll help him understand the reality of this life and focus more on the hereafter. He says, firstly, another fi dunya wa sur'ati zawaliha. Just looking at life and how quickly it goes by, that it's not long. And it can be removed, Allah can call us back at any minute, and that's it. It's over. That's number one. If a person understands this, then no matter, this will be something that helps them focus more on the hereafter, because this life is short-lived, short. More time will be spent in the hereafter, right? It said two, another fil akhirah, wa annaha atiyah. A person sits and they understand that the hereafter is coming. It's a reality that's coming. So you have to prepare for it. And this is the final place. The hereafter is the final stop. So a person knowing that, okay, this life, if I lived 100 years, if I lived 100 years, then what is 100 years next to the hereafter? It's not long at all. It's not long at all compared to the hereafter. Looking at the hereafter, knowing that, okay, my final stop is the hereafter. I have to answer, be questioned in the grave, and this is going to go on. If we compare these two things, he said this will be things that help a person detach themselves or give less importance to frivolous things in this life that a lot of times there's no benefit to us. It's just, it might not be haram. Right? Not necessarily haram, impermissible, but it may not bring any benefit to us for our hereafter. Could just be wasting time. Like we say, killing time. Killing time, wasting time. It's a waste of time. It could just be a waste of time, right? And not all things. Point being is to bring awareness to the reality is that the dunya is short and the akhirah is the ultimate goal, making sure that we secure our spots in paradise by doing as many deeds as we can do firstly and then seeking Allah's mercy. He said, فإذا تأمل العبد في مثل هذا انتفع أعظم الانتفاع. If a person were to reflect on these two things, the shortness of this life and the reality that the hereafter is coming, then this would be a thing that benefits them tremendously. The third thing he says, قرناء السوء. He says, evil or bad companions, keeping people around you that are not good company. Keeping people who are around you that are not good company. Now, is this in our power or no? Yeah, this is in our power. We have no power, we have no control over what the next person does.
You should keep them around us.
That's in our power, that part.
Yeah, right.
What other people do, we don't have any control of. Now, who you choose, that's on us, right? What people do walking down the street, we're not in control, and we're not the police of every person, every Muslim walking down, or every non-Muslim. We're not, here to police people. We command the good and forbid the evil based on our ability to do that, based on a big case-to-case situation. So this قرناء السوء وقد صح عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم التحذير من قرين السوء وخليط الفساد قال the Prophet ﷺ, he already advised us and warned us about taking people as friends and companions, close friends who are not good companions. They're not good for our iman. It doesn't mean that the brother's not a good person, right? Good dude. But that a good dude or a good sister doesn't mean that they're good for your iman. They might be good for something else. But as far as protecting your iman, protecting your faith, and keeping you in the remembrance of Allah, that might not be the person for that. But they might know how to put you on to a job or something like that. They might know how to set you up, resume building. You know what I'm saying? Stuff that's beneficial. But when it comes to iman, they might not be the people to take as a close friend or somebody that you constantly hang out with. Qala sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, "Ar-rajulu ala dini khalilihi, falyanzur ahadukum man yukhalil." That a man is on the religion of his companion. You behave like the people you hang with. فَلْيَنْظُرْ. So look, a person has to look, investigate the people that he takes, man yukhalid, that he takes as close companions and friends like that. And this is a whole dars in itself, that everybody is not worthy of companionship, close companionship. Talking about day in, day out. وَلِهَذَا يَنْبَغِي عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِ أَنْ لَا يُصَاحِبْ إِلَّا مَنْ تَعُودُ مِنْ صُحْبَتِهِ عَلَيْهِ بِالْخَيْرِ وَالنَّفْعِ فِي دِينِهِ. He says, so this is the reason, based on this hadith, that it's not for a Muslim, it's not for the believer, to just befriend and take any and everybody, that they hang out with any and everybody, except for the people that when they're in their presence, they're in their company, that they benefit in their religion. They take some benefit from them. And at the least, they don't harm them. They don't harm the iman. They don't harm a person's faith and make a person weaker. Everybody with me? It's possible. Like, you take people, we go back. So because we go back, you're not really dealing like that. You're just doing whatever you're doing, and I'm around you. It could affect me. It can make me weaker, because we come from the same thing. I don't need to be back around that. If I left that, I don't want to be around it. So if I come back to that, and a person's still involved in whatever it is, then it may make the person weaker. They could possibly put themselves in a situation to fall back into the same sin, the same disobedience. So they have to leave that, and possibly have to leave the person until the person is able to leave off that sin. يقول فضيل بن عياد رحمه الله. Fudayl ibn Iyad, one of the imams of the past, قال ليس للمؤمن أن يقعد مع كل من شاء. It's not for the believer just to sit with anybody you want to sit with. It's to take anybody and everybody as close friends and companions. Everybody's not worthy of that. Everybody's not worthy of that. Your iman, our faith is precious to us. It's precious. It's a serious thing to us. We have to guard it against all these things that he mentioned, the shaitan, being heedless, ignorance, al-i'rad. We have to make sure that we put ourselves in a position to guard our iman. So he says that a person is not just to sit with anybody. وقال سفيان رحمه الله. Sufyan rahimahullah said, ليس أبلغ في فساد رجل وصلاحه من صاحب. He said, there's nothing more, nothing affects a person more regarding being upright or being evil like his or her companion, the closest thing to him, right? Because usually the group of people, they move on the same time. They're into the same things. Birds of a feather flock together, they used to say. So people, they're on the same time pretty much. So he says, there's nothing more, or the thing that affects a person more, whether it's correcting them, making them upright, or if it's making them worse. That thing is the companion, the people that they hang out with. وكان يقول عبد الله بن مسعود رضي الله عنه اعتبروا الناس بأخدانهم فإن المرء لا يخادن إلا من يعجبه. He said, judge the people, or you can consider a person that what they're on based on their companions, the people that they hang out with. That goes back to that old saying, birds of a feather flock together, right? In general, It's rare. Okay, somebody might come out of that group and they're not really into that, but it's rare. People into a group and they move together like that, usually they're into the same things. That doesn't mean every single person is the same. It's a general type of statement. He says, فَإِنَّ الْمَرْأَ لَا يُخَادِنُ إِلَّا مَنْ يُعْجِبُهُ. Because a person does not hang out with people except that they are amazed by that person. They only keep people around them who they like. They like how they move. They like how they deal with people. They like something about them they like, so they keep them around them. It said a person is not around a person except that there's something that they like about that person. So if a person is hanging around, he says, hanging around the fusaq, hanging around people who are sinners, openly sinning, people who openly sin, and people of evil. He says, min a'zam asbab naqs al-iman. This is from the greatest things that will affect a person's belief, faith, make us weaker, hanging around people who openly disobey Allah. They don't have a problem with it. People openly being disobedient to Allah, and they don't have any shyness. And a person takes a person like that, and they hang out with them, hang out, not go to the store, or maybe not that we see him, it's possible he's giving them advice. Just because we're talking to a person, I mean we're taking them as a close friend. That's another misunderstanding, that we can't even talk to people. How you gonna give somebody advice if you don't even talk to them? All right? You gotta be able to talk to people and advise them. But it's the difference between advising and it's the difference between going past that and having relationships that are beyond advice. Where it becomes to, you hang out and you can't even say anything. If you were to say anything, you'd be saying something every minute. Because the person is they're not being obedient. They're upon disobedience and they don't care. So if you were to take them as a friend like that, you'd be correcting them every minute. It doesn't mean every time we see a person talking to somebody, oh, that's his friend. He hanging out with Fulan. No, it's not we have to be able to talk to each other. We have to be able to advise one another. We have to be able to stop and pull each other to the side and say, whatever we want to say. We have to be able to do that. But at the same time, we have to be careful about who we take as close friends. And lastly, he says what falls under this also is the internet. He talks about the internet. He says that a person has to be careful. As we all know, the internet could be beneficial and it could be harmful for our faith. It could be beneficial and it could be harmful for our iman. Looking at the wrong thing could harm our iman severely. Right? Pictures, videos, some things, a lot of things, they could be harmful to our iman. At the same time, we could find things on the internet that could be beneficial. They could help our iman. So we have to be careful, and we have to, and that's on us. That's on us to choose what we watch, to choose what we like on the internet, what you follow. That's all us. That's all our fingertips that we have to answer for Yom Qiyamah, pushing buttons and, we're going to say the shaitan made me do it. The shaitan is from the asbab al-kharijiyya, outside of our control, right? It's us. So we choose to push like or push this and push that, and that's us. We choose to disobey Allah and put it on camera and put it on, that's us, right? At the same time, there's a lot of benefit on the internet. And this is the end of this whole last paragraph. He's talking about the internet and going on the internet, different websites. All of that's up to us to choose what we look at and watch. If we think we've been influenced by the shaitan, then we have adiyah, we have dua to protect ourselves from that. Are we using them? If not, then that's our problem. So he lastly speaks about that, and he says, الواجب على المسلم أن يصون نفسه وبيته عن معاول الهدم وطراءة الشر. It's obligatory for the Muslims to protect themselves and their households from pathways of evil, to try to cut off any evil from entering the household. And he says, فَالْأَمْرُ فِي غَايَةِ الْخُطُورَةِ, because this is something serious. وَالْحَافِظْ هُوَ اللَّهِ, and Allah is the one who protects. وَمَنْ يَعْتَصِمْ بِاللَّهِ فَقَدْ هُدِيَ إِلَى الصِّرَاطِ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ, and whoever seeks protection from Allah, then Allah will guide him. Then Allah will guide him. But it's upon us to take that takes the steps that we are able to take to protect ourselves and our families and our households from being corrupted by things that 20 years ago may not have been able to reach our households. Maybe 20 years ago or 10 years ago, it may have been impossible for our children to see or hear something like this, but now it's normal. It's easy, and we may not even be able to, we may not know that they've been exposed to it. So we have to be aware of what's going on around us. Sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka nabiyina Muhammad. Any stops there? Any questions? Because that was the last of the asbab al-dakhiliyah. The shaitan, the dunya, and evil people. For the asbab al-dakhiliyah, we'll stop there. Inshallah, next week we'll start something else. Sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka nabiyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.